Here, Leviathans will be first pick uno mas. And we will see if anything shifts up. Hebo matches up with what we had last time, as does the Baba Yaga. Now, here's the other question for you. What are the odds, how deep do we go where things might just stay the exact same?
I would hope not very deep.
Okay, oh, well.
I would hope the change-up is right here for the Leviathans, because, again, unless they have a completely different draft planned and they're okay with the Oni Warriors getting a few of those gods back, I would think the adaptations have to be made here, because they knew they were going to be first pick. They knew the bands would shake out, at the very least, at the start this way. And I don't think the Marti Karas is the first pick. I got to be honest. I've seen mixed success from this character. It does do incredible burst damage, relatively safe, but first pick I don't think is the way to go here. But the Leviathans still did put a lot of pressure on it in game number 1, and they will make that adaptation, and they will take away the knock. So Awesome Jake gonna have to find something new to be annoying on for the Leviathans.
Yeah, glancing at a quick look, 4 games where Marty has been first pick, 4 games where he's lost he's first pick. So first pick hasn't been great. I see 1 win for him at a glance, a couple of bans, right, thrown his way.
So he's 1-5.
Yeah, he's not really working out super
But 100%
well.
loss rate if it's first pick.
Yep. And so maybe that gives us the eye-opener right here, right? Maybe this game's going to be decided. And the next 2 minutes, the Leviathans potentially lock in Marty first. You had mentioned the shift, right? Hebo, Aphrodite, the same. Nox is new. Baba Yaga, Thor, the same. Last time around, this was a Mercury. And I think the discussion maybe, Trelly, being if maybe if they first pick Marty, you can grab a Mercury for Panatom, because as much as we know that Adapting likes it, Panatom has looked pretty good on that pick in the past as well.
Yeah, I think the Leviathans put themselves in a good spot here. As long as they're not prioritizing that Marty, they can go towards the Horus themselves. Takes it away from Awesome Jake. Gets that extra bit of healing, that extra bit of sustain and setup. And they are going to first pick it. That is a much better look, in my opinion, than what the Leviathans did previously. I think good on Coach Oxy for figuring at least the start of this draft out. We'll have to see how the Oni Warriors answer back, because they have the option to just say, hey, we want the Morgan and Chernobog. But considering the Warriors rarely do repeat picks, I imagine this is going to be a completely new draft just by nature of they like changing it up. And so far, those are 2 new gods, Cernunnos and the Mercury.
Look, this is something that I think is going to be powerhouse. That's what comes to my mind. I see the Mercury. Again, something that Adapting has played really well in the past, but something that we've seen Panatom absolutely demolish on. We'll have to throw him under the bus real fast, which is to say that one of the nightmare games I've seen on Mercury was also from Panatom. But if that's one out of the however many others he's played, I don't think he's too worried about it. In fact, knowing that he has been playing it pretty well, 78% win rate, 3.0 KDA, I don't think we have too much to worry about. Hercules as well as Marty, the Manticore. That takes away a lot of the menacing nature of him when you call him Marty. Huh?
Yeah, just Marty.
Just Marty. Yeah, it's Marty the Manticore.
Just the guy down the street.
Marty the Manticore would be the plushy version.
And I hope that's being made as we speak.
Yeah, now I want that.
And also, he's not first pick.
He's not first pick.
So that actually raises his win rate exponentially.
Yeah, when not first pick, he's done real well.
Yeah, so I think already a good look here for the Leviathans. They've got that front line. They've got plenty of dive. But the Oni Warriors, Cern, Mercury, and Maui, in my mind, some of the top picks you can get at the moment. I mean, Cern has been so highly contested in the duo lane. Mercury is always going to be a top 5 jungler in the current meta. And then now he's been slept on because he doesn't have the healing that all these other top supports provide, but he's got lots of setup. He still does have that HP 5 and the protections he can give to your team with Mystical Alua. They have plenty that Maui can bring to the table. So the Oni Warriors top 3 is still scary, regardless of what the Leviathans have done to try and adapt, but they do have lots of damage, and they've got that CC that I was looking for.
You had mentioned the Maui. Good engage. Mercury brings the same thing. Warriors ban out Susano and Fenrir as they try to control a little more. I mean, look, that's essentially 4 bans now alongside the Vimana, with a pick on their side as well that's just straight up trying to rip at Adapting's God Pool. Thoth and the Morrigan banned out from the other side. Both picks that we've seen Pagon play, but honestly, some that I've come to associate with Shinto as well. Curious where he'll go. Merlin's still available with a criminal 80% win rate right now, Trelly. It feels like that's a good pick for Pagon.
Definitely is. I mean, this is what I'm talking about, though. The Oni Warriors had the opportunity to run some of those picks back, and they choose not to. It just seems like they always have a new game plan and a new way they want to play the game. This would be interesting, though. This is a pick that I've seen adapting run games with, but how strong is it going to be up into the Mercury? This used to be the counter to Mercury, funny enough, in ranked, because you could build Typhon's Fang Bancrofts, and you knew that Merc was never going to get anti-heal. Now that is not the case. You can get Deathbringer, and the lifesteal build isn't as strong for Ao Kuang, but still, the Rod of Tahuti, the Do More, the Spear of the Magus build from Ao Kuang still does have that hard carry potential.
Go forth,
and you have plenty of physical damage already, so we get to see some, what I'm assuming is adapting Ao Kuang, which is a storied pick nonetheless.
What I'm about to say is spoilers for the Smite that played earlier today, so if you did not watch that, close your ears for a second. Also, the winner of today's Smite was the Ao Kuang. That's pretty much all I was getting at for that one. It was a long preamble for a really bad setup. I don't know why I went for it. Tiamat gets locked in. And up against the Merlin, look, this is a matchup that we got kind of used to seeing, right, very often. I think at the kickoff tournament, it was pretty much the only two gods it felt like there were. Before we saw maybe a little fall off or even pick up into like the assassin, the hunter territory. How do you feel? I mean, it feels like a relatively, I don't want to say tanky squad for the Leviathans, but definitely one that feels like it scales really late.
I like what they've done so far, but it does seem to me like the Leviathans haven't quite grasped what wins games in this current meta. Because I see 3 people that are going to be building crit on one side, and I see 0 crits on the other. And it just, to me, yeah, Mari does big burst damage. Ao Kuang can delete you. And I think if they play early game well enough, they can snowball a game away. Crit takes a bit to get online. But so far, crit has been running the day. And you can't do Fire Giant without it. It takes such a long time to actually burn through FG without crit. And we've seen teams that have Marty on them, they have had struggles around objectives. They have had struggles around those Fire Giant dance because the other team, in this case, the only one, let's say the Leviathans are winning. They go to fire, they try to pull it, it takes too long. The Warriors watch. They say, all right, let's see how low you can get this before we decide to actually fight you because it takes so long to pull. They do have good dive, though. I love the Horse. I love the Herc. It's just their backline. I foresee an issue towards the later stages of the game.
Meanwhile, like you said, the others, I mean, Merlin has a ton of burn damage, right, for those frontliners. Then I see crit, and long range engage. Yep. So much like you, it feels like the Warriors. Again, if we're looking at a style where we're looking at a style chart, what we've seen out of most Leviathans in the past, and granted, they've changed up a little bit of their identity, right? Fine, okay, adapting, going to bring in a little different flavor, having Slaney now as coach instead of Oxy, who's actually on the other side as well. I feel like I didn't mention that one in Game 1, worth mentioning here. Coaching against his former team. You are bringing in a very different style. This is a team that used to be known for, we don't care what happens in 20 minutes. Sometimes a 5,000 gold deficit is a Leviathan's lead, and they'd still take it into a late game, play that 5-on-5, maybe a little bit stronger. Warriors, you seem to be a little more on their side for this draft. Is it just because it fits their style? Is it? I mean, you've mentioned the crit. Like, is it just the meta? What has you leaning so heavily towards them?
I think it's just looking at the opposition, right? You're looking at your matchup. If Ao Kuang catches Merc in the jungle early on, he's got a good time. But if Merc's got those crits, it doesn't seem like Ao Kuang is going to be able to return that damage, especially if he's getting bullied early. However, I do think we have to speak on the fact that the Oni Warriors have a late game slanted draft here. They have essentially 4 carries in a Maui. If it takes too long for those carries to get online, I could see the Leviathan steamrolling. Marty is going to get Transcendence, and he's good to go. He's ready. He's got that burst. And then you got Herc and Horus as a very solid frontline CC-heavy composition. If they can just, CC these carries and let the damage dealers do what they're supposed to, I could see the Leviathans building up an early lead. It's just, if you're going to 30, the Oni Warriors just went out.
And we always talk a lot about like Horus's late game because of what it can provide, but his early game, he's still a warrior.
Yep.
And we'll see if that is enough to give them the lead they need here for the Leviathans. It's game number 2, and it's Hindu and J-Mac.
Thanks so much, Gore and Trelly on the desk. Yeah, game 2 about to begin. And J-Mac, looking at the conversation in terms of the actual compositions they put together here, it's going to be the Merlin for SOT in the solo lane. I'm concerned for the life of SOT. They give him a lot of confidence here. They give him a lot of trust to basically freely pick whatever he wants, which we don't necessarily see from the rest of the league's solo laners.
This is just we want to mechanics diff everybody
Sure.
confidence level of play that they're going with the Oni Warriors. And they've done it so far. Ever since the kickoff tournament, they have mechanics diffed and just map diffed everybody out there. Concerns from the desk that do come up is that this early game isn't very strong for the Oni Warriors. Putting the Merlin all the way on the opposite side of the map means you don't have great pressure necessarily around Gold Fury with the Merlin, but you trade that off by having 2 Hunters again and the ability to have triple crit late game, because it's only assumed that Panatom is going to be going that way. That's the natural build progression that we've been seeing from the Mercury. Once that second, third item comes online for the Oni Warriors, if they are even or ahead, the Leviathans have essentially, in my mind, lost this early game. They need to win through this dual lane. Zapman, Wrong, you need to get something going because they have the best lane to fight against right now.
2 different starts going on here. Jungler for Oni Warriors in Panitom, starting on the left-hand side speed buff. Meanwhile, on the right-hand side of things here, Adapting starting with the solo laner, giving the speed buff to Shinto in the mid lane. It's a bit of a difference across the way. Who gets to the dual lane first is always really the question. And who has the experienced lead? For the most part between these two, Warriors should have pressure in this lane unless Wrong You can make a good initial play here. But already you'll see that it'll be the Warriors hitting level 2. And over in the solo lane, the beatdown begins as Panitom in mid lane takes a bit more poke than bargain for there, getting aggressive against Adapting and Shinto.
The initial clear for dual Leviathans, if they get to lane at the exact same time as the Warriors, Warriors should win out every single time. You have a Rom, piercing autos, hits all 6 of the minions. You have a Maui, piercing autos, hits at least 3 of the minions unless you stack the entire wave up. Now, once the level 2s have been hit, Wrong You has a little bit more pressure to be able to throw out that cleave auto himself with that first ability. Zapman has good clear on the wave as well.
You can see the supports both trying to trade out with the Hunters here, keeping them both busy. And at the end of the day, it's kind of even across the board. Wrongyu's going to be a little bit careful towards the end there. On the right-hand side of things, SOT now a bit of lane pressure up against Fine. Okay, he has hit level 3 now on this Merlin. Have a bit more rotation on these abilities once again. Maybe a bit of safety. Do you reckon he's taken Flicker by now?
Flicker...
I want to say he's not and gone for damage, but if he hasn't,
not.
he might be worried because Adapting is over here. And he sees Adapting. Doesn't panic, doesn't rotate away, just stands his ground. Adapting will take the buff and give it over to Fine. Okay.
If I'm SOT, I remember game 1, the fact that Adapting was camping that solo lane the entire time for the first 15 minutes of the game. I'm definitely getting Flicker. We saw with the pan over, SOT did get it. And so he'll be safe, at least for now, up against Adapting. Not the best chase for Alkwong in the early game against it. Jake and Netro, though, wrapping back around.
Yeah, a fight there and a fight in mid lane too as Panitom dives the tower, eats a shot, but now Wrong You looks at Jake and finds the stun. The penetration's good to whittle down Jake's health. He needs to leap away and gets it. The poison will not be enough for first blood, but pressure is in favor of Leviathans for a moment. That shield, though, still alive on the left-hand side as Fine OK wins a duel with SOT in the solo lane.
It's going to be pretty much the way it goes up until that first item is there for SOT. Pagon in the 2v1 is confident to dash in.
Has to, though, because he knew Adapting was round the corner in the pre-beast to try and prevent the CC. Could punish him even more. Adapting with first blood on the Alkwong in mid lane. On the right-hand side, Panitom level 3 will at least try to steal away this blue buff from Fine OK and keep the pressure rolling elsewhere. Blue buff goes down, but more importantly, Pagon dead in mid.
And this is how you answer back to the pressure on the right side of the map, since Adapting spent so much time last game and even the early stage to try and put pressure on its SOT. Panatom wisely says, okay, let me help you out a little bit this game. You are going to be a Merlin, our primary magic damage. We don't want our only real mage burst to fall too far behind. So goes over and helps for an invade on the blue buff. And that should set up SOT at least for the next 2 to 3 minutes in this lane.
Expect to see more pressure in mid lane now, especially knowing that Adapting did see those beads from Pagon and finds the kill. Well, now Adapting's level 5 this time round, so it should be a bit easier to potentially find and execute. In the mid lane right now, you can see it's going to be Pagon farming up, green buff going over or dropped by Shinto, and he's going to pick up that green buff too. I do think it's something that we can see some mages pick up here is Jake, you know, just zoning ultimate, that one I'll call it, just to allow him to get more Bastion damage there.
Yeah, he goes for the, tries to hit the 7-10 split, unfortunately goes right down the middle, so it doesn't get anything with it this time through. For the Oni Warriors, I've got a lot of confidence in Jake, specifically with this Maui pick.
Yeah.
While Jake himself may not have had the most success with it at the tail end of last season, we didn't get to see too much of it from him. Now he's had some downtime. We've seen a lot less teams putting ban priority towards this god. He's gotten more practice on it. and with the pressure that he has in his lanes. While Pagon did go down for first blood, he's still even with Shinto, so you have somewhere in mid to try and capitalize off that ultimate. You can always go over towards Solo if you want to give Sod a hand over there. This Maui, for me, is the pick for the Oni Warriors that needs to succeed the most. You've got your carries, but you need your frontliner, you need your nearly only initiation that you have. Sure, you can Sonic Boom in with Panatom, but that's sacrificing your body as opposed to that Landfall ultimate. Grab them from range and bring them to your carries.
I don't know whether SOT really knew Adapting was there, but Panatom turns up at the same time. And I love the way SOT played that. If he knew that Adapting was in that corner, just waited for Panatom going, hey, I'm going to pretend that I don't know what's going on here, and you're going to wrap on in. And it allows SOT, with the Merlin pressure, that he likes to bring for those Bastions to get a bit more gold for himself on this right-hand side. Dual lane though, Zapman level 6, still hasn't gone back to base, neither has Netroid in this lane. Bloodforge and Transcendence seems to be the order here, as Panatom can test the right and Harpies that go the way of Leviathans.
Leviathans, with their first blood, have been able to help out in this mid, which is where it was needed the most last game. Pentagon was getting so far behind that he needed to be shut down a little bit earlier on. They do so here for the Leviathans with that first blood. A bit of a rotation towards gold, but still a bit early in the game. You've only got your Bloodforge on Pagon. Netroid hasn't gone back to base, so you have essentially no damage from your Hunter there. Probably a bit ambitious to go for the Fury at that point, but at least letting the Leviathans know that you still want to be active on the map. That's the most important part, is forcing Adapting to really have to stop his farm, to make a rotation, that execute, probably the most potent thing in this early game by getting that 20% threshold. You don't have to get them dead, just get them close enough to dead to take them down. Yeah,
I think if anything, the Warriors may have looked for the gold if they found that pick on Rongu that seemed to have been that target on that rotation there. Level 8 for Fine OK then in that solo lane, level 8 for Shinto in mid lane here. That's where the majority of the experienced leads is, because Pagon just dinged level 8 now. So ever such a slight lead for Shinto at the moment, working on that Doom mob that we've seen a bit more of this year. What's the reason for that, J-Mac?
They put pen on it. That's the big shot, is you put percent pen on Doom Orb. That's going to help you go through. Obviously, the movement speed is great. We've been seeing a lot of that from the mages when Poseidon and the Morgan were in the meta. That was the typical go-tos. We saw it a little bit with the Hot Wall when he was jungling primarily last season as well. But honestly, just adding percent pen makes it such a great option. Nearly every single item in that tree so valuable towards mages at this point, whether you want a lot of percent pen, a little bit, plus the amount of power you get from that item is just ridiculous.
Sure, I guess a bit of MP5 never hurts either if that ever comes into play. I mean, 3 members now with the Doom Orb because the SOT has picked it up. As the junglers are heading to the right-hand side once again, they will collide in the jungle, and Adapting will claim first shot of damage. SOT, though, the boulder removed all his health, and Adapting just needs one shot with a dragon, and he calls the name. 2 kills now for Adapting as we go back to the duo lane to see, well, the dance of stealth being used here. Rongu going to channel the ultimate though. Maybe will go in and get aggressive. They're looking for a play, but good bit of peel coming out from Jake there with the hook. And it's Jake all in for the time being, has his leap away. Adapting meanwhile in the mid lane now looking towards Pagon, forcing the dash away as a sonic boom rips to the back and hits Shinto, who is forced to beat defensively. A lot of action from the junglers so far.
Have a target now for the Oni Warriors in Shinto. We'll either have to leap away from an incoming Sonic Boom or maybe even a landfall from Jake, but most importantly, sets up pressure for the Warriors. Now your damage is online for your carries. Gold Fury is an easy pick for them.
Look at Leviathans trying to respawn. Rongu and Zap trying to get there, but just too little, too late. Will it happen like game 1 where they try to chase too deep? Doesn't look like it's an option this time round. Instead, mid lane from Leviathans, they'll look to claim some of those Bastions at least, and even up that lane. The Bastions, for the most part, it just feels like a, sure, I'll take the gold, right? Yeah.
150 gold just sitting there.
True, I guess it's 250, that's not too bad.
And you get that ×3 across the map. Being able to just pick up that extra gold is nice. Plus, once you start sieging these tier 1 towers, you're going to take them down eventually, just getting them early, get you that extra little bit of gold. You can buy a ward if you want to, though nobody who's in a carry position is buying wards at this stage, so it just gets your build a little bit faster online at this point. For the Oni Warriors, they're keeping the Leviathans at this slow pace. Leviathans do scale well to the late game. That was one thing the Des brought up, is you do have this Ao Kuang, who is going to be a late game hyper carry. We've seen in the past what Tiamat is capable of as that late game carry mage. I'd look towards Shinto and Paul as big players of that pick and have really showcased her strengths late. Zapman on the Martikros is going to have a lot of area damage and control with that god, especially if he can channel that ultimate onto a single target for 3-4 pumps of that ultimate, and then even further beyond that. Wrong U and Fine OK, those are the two I'm looking at because we talk about committal versus non-committal initiation. Fine OK from a range can pick up one target usually is the ideal. If you can get more than one, cool. But Wrong U's got to be the one to get into the backline by his own merits. He's got to dive in with the blink or with the ultimate, find that stun, find the knockup after to set up for the rest of the team. So Leviathans have a couple of different ways to get into the fight where, as mentioned before for the Oni Warriors, they've either got to expend Panatom to dive in or have Jake pull the carry or pull them back towards their carries.
Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a trickier task here. You can see the rotation from adapting into enemy jungle once again. Hunting for farm, hunting for stragglers. Warriors, meanwhile, they'll have 3 grouped towards the middle area. They'll get the left-hand Harpy shortly with Panatom being in position there. All ultimates back available for the junglers at least, as Final K's now takes on line 2. We'll see if there's any action across this map, but at the moment, as you said, the longer this game goes on, the Warriors scale very well with their crits. But can they give as good as they get the Leviathans here, because they do have a lot of damage too. And speaking of that, I do like to see what Wrong U's gone here. Sovereignty is his first item. He's going to be dealing with a lot of physical in his face. It makes sense to give your team a bit of an aura too.
He is. The only problem that I see with it is that you need an extra answer to crit, so you're going to double dip into your pure physical defense to pick up a Spectral. Do you now kind of force Fine OK to go into that Spectral armor to deal with it as well? So you've got a couple of options in that. Sovereignty will help since that's the primary damage he is dealing with. Pagon, Netroid, or Panatom, one of those, combination 2 of those 3 at the time. So it will help out. It's good early. Does put him behind against what SOT is going to be bringing to that late game. You don't have that magic defense just yet for your mage. But if last game's any indication, it'll probably be about 20 or so minutes before we see SOT actually start joining these team fights.
Yeah, speaking of Fine OK as well, definitely going to be a situation for him who's just picked up the beads as his second relic, by the way. He's a little bit worried about getting CC chain potentially in these fights. Doesn't have any physical defense really online just yet. I say that as he's now picked up that silver breastplate, looking for the breastplate to keep him tanky up against these 3 physicals, because I don't think he can really frontline too hard at the moment with just that magical defense.
No, especially not, as mentioned, against 3 gods who are going to be building crit.
And 2 of them have just got some there. The Boomerang in mid for Pagon and the Rage online for Mercury.
Once these soul laners start rotating in is where I imagine most of the actual action will take place. We saw early Warriors immediately go to that left side, get that Fury once they pulled the beats from Shinto. If I'm the only Warriors, if I'm Panatom or Jake, I'm doing the same thing. I'm going back to Shinto right now. I'm using that landfall ult to either get his ultimate away, get his beads, maybe a dash or a sonic boom to set up. The only Warriors may not even take that time as they just go right to the Fury.
And look at that time, and it barely spawned, and the members are on the scene already to take it down. Adapting was in the area there, but I don't think there was a whole lot he could have done to dissuade them, even if they saw in that situation. So a good window for Warriors, just keeping good times on, keeping a good eye on their timers, and being on point at the right moment to deny Leviathans any involvement or contest.
The big problem with that, for the Leviathans, there's no ward coverage on the top side of the Fury Pit at all. Meanwhile, Oni Warriors put one right at that green buff, so they see anybody rotating in through that jungle, only see that Adapting has gone through there at that point, see Shinto's in the lane, sees that Wrong U and Zatman haven't been seen in a while. It's an easy startup for the Warriors.
The Pyro now started up, and you saw the Warriors get pushed out, and specifically Pagon and Jake as well. However, SOT on the scenes, and then Panatom jumping down mid lane towards Adapting. It forces a reset for now. Leviathan still want to fight other Pyro. Fine OK going to frontline as long as he can as Adapting pokes the mid side. All the while, though, the Oni minions that were just picked up by the Oni Warriors, funny enough, are starting to push in some lanes and will need some defense, otherwise they'll do some damage to the towers.
We saw a small rotation from Zapman towards mid. Maybe posturing the Leviathans want to do Pyro. They still do. Netroid has foregone it. He's going to lane. He'll be able to get some split push. Maybe break even on this Pyromancer. But if the Oni Warriors just keep doing this, show up, stop the Leviathans from grabbing it. It gives Netroid all this free time in the left lane. He got that Oni minion wave in. Did about half of the tower's HP. One more wave coming up. He should be able to repeat that. Zapman's going to be a bit late and might lose out on his tower, but Netroid won't stick around, and it's Pyro for the Oni Warriors to start.
Well, it's going to get low, and it will be secure, but Adapting has found SOT. SOT still alive, though. Will to half health. Horusol is inbound. Looking towards the backline once again. Brings along Fine OK with him. Nice little slow coming out from Rongyu there that will get 2 sets of beads in Pagan and SOT. Rongyu battling with Jake, who's whipping him down his spine. Okay, gets the boulder and sets up the execute there, but it was blocked. SOT still alive, adapting now zoned in an awkward spot. Stealth's back in, but finds Panitom. Panitom pulled away, and Leviathans are starting to scrap this one out. Panitom's still tanky enough, is in the sky, comes Zapman, finds the ultimate for the double kill, and now it's the runaway job for the Oni Warriors as they look towards Netroid, who beats it down too. Zapman wants to triple badly though, as he dives the Phoenix, still 2 towers up in mid lane. And all members of Leviathan still alive for the now. Jake will fall away. And that was a weird fight, because what do they get off that? They can't do fire at this point, surely. They don't get a tower. The pyro's already gone. So at the end of the day, it was a couple of kills.
More than anything, denies the Pyromancer's buff over to the Oni Warriors. They did get it, but immediately had to turn tail and run. SOT losing half of his health before even getting to that Pyromancer means a very bad start for the Oni Warriors there, because now he can't stand by and chump out his damage. Now he has to be on the run. Immediately Rongyu recognizes this, dives into the backline with the Horus, finds the slow to get 2 sets of beads, but because SOT is already so low, he can't turn and fight. Typically, if you're full HP at that point with his style of build, you go into the fire stance, you stand your ground, but when you're already half HP, Final K's going through the backline, and everybody's so scattered on the Oni Warriors in that fight, there wasn't a real group up by them to go, and Leviathans can just start funneling in and collapsing on top.
Zapman needs to funnel back towards his tier 2 tower at least, because he didn't realize there's that many members around, but I don't think Warriors realize that until just now. Pagon steps up, has to dash back as Rongyu comes on in. Hook lands from Jake as a stun hits onto Pagon. Now the follow-up damage not really there from the acid, but Zapman's ultimate is going to force an Aegis out of Pagon. Shinto wrapping around the back now, trying to close the gap. Don't know he's going to be able to do too much on Tiamat as Rongyu jumps in with his ult, forcing all the Warriors to their tier 1 tower. Good play from Warriors just to back away, but I think they could have picked up Zap there, J-Mac.
I don't think that Pagon wanted to use his Aegis during that fight either. It just came up before that fight breaks out and has to use it instantly from the full channel of Zapman in that death from above. That damage from Artikaros really starts to stack up at this point. Now that you have the Transcendence and the Bloodforge, this is that power spike that Zapman was waiting for last game to be able to get involved in. Now that he's got a couple of kills, it's expedited his build a little bit so. But going up against him, Netroid on this ROM, not going towards the crit that we expected, maybe going towards a little bit more Tank Shroud, getting that Executioner allows him to be able to deal with some of the procs that Final K, specifically what Rongyu has built up as well, harping back a little bit towards that Sovereignty.
Gold Fury spawned again and Warriors on the scene already, but this time Rongyu has slipped round the back. No reinforcements nearly around, so he's trying to force him away, and in doing so takes a ton of damage, but a good heal towards Zap to get him out. Meanwhile in the sky, the Rama snipes come out, and Adapting finds Panitom in the jungle. Now it's the Warriors scattered and running for their lives. Pagon's left on his own and takes out by Zapman once more. Shinto just trying to zone away 3. Rongyu does get in there with a surge, but a little too late to keep him alive, and instead he'll fall 2. But the good news is Leviathans are there for cleanup.
And the worst part about that is that the Oni Warriors just grouped up so hard together. 4 people got hit by the root combo from Zapman, and that is an insane amount of burst damage for a Martikaros to get off there. Jake should probably go down here with Adapting still having Execute through all of that. By the way, Adapting didn't ult that entire fight and is able to now net 3 extra kills for the Leviathans. All of that pressure the Oni Warriors established right. Lost it as soon as that Pyromancer went down. A bold attempt to pull the Fury, but with Rongyu standing by in the vision there, Leviathans make a perfect turnaround.
We go with the graphs here. Doug should be able to show us as well that in the early game, Leviathans were up 5 kills, but down in every department of farm. And now with that, it's kind of evened out. It shows that kills don't necessarily win you the game. The objectives can neutralize that. But in that engagement there, hold the phone! What are the Warriors doing?
Rongyu is here. That's enough to stop it.
Just enough.
The one single body. The one single body. I mean, yes, you have crit. You can do a lot of damage to it, but that is bold. Considering Rongyu literally just did the same thing. He stood there and watched you do an objective. They funneled all their damage into Rongyu to start that last engagement, and all it took was Adapting walking through to the back line. Final K dropping a boulder on the middle of 3 people, and as I said, Zapman finding a 4-man root combo with that poison barb. Made it so easy for Leviathans to capitalize off of that pressure that Rongyu established at the Fury. Now can repeat that at the Fire Giant if need be. But the Oni Warriors, it's not over for them. Again, they're running double Hunter, you're running with a Mercury, you have a lot of objective, you have a lot of structure clear. The team fight is where the big struggle comes in, again, because you're missing out on having that second traditional kind of initiation there. Sot's not going to do it on a Merlin. He's there for damage. You're now building tanky on him, maybe a Breastplate of Valor at most. But it's all going to come down to Jake.
And in fairness as well, I mean, Maui's not the most defensive of supports. He's a bit more aggressive as we talk about aggression there. Panitom meets Shinto in the jungle, but neither end up using much in terms of relics. Just Sonic Boom used by Panitom. Grouping towards the right-hand side from both now. Ward coverage around this Fire Giant currently favors the Leviathans as Fine OK now on zone duty, looking for a carry. How much of a storm can he weather? Knocked down to a third of his health lost there, but regen some as Jake poked out heavily, and that's a frontline tank out of the fray. Adapting will slip around the back and live for now. Gotta be careful of that crit from Panitom misses with the major look. And Leviathans will fall back and give him a heal and start up this FG.
One force back to base, make that 2 as SOT returns as well. The carries have to steal this one away, but it's a bait by the Leviathans to get someone from the Warriors to step forward with Panatom, Netroid, and Pagon. All have great fight back in there. When you've got 2 of those players able to slam those crits, it makes it difficult to really want to fight in those tight corridors. But the Leviathans, recognizing maybe they don't have as much objective shred, as mentioned on the desk, Martigras isn't building crit. He's going to be much slower to take these down. You do have some leeway with adapting on the Ao Kuang, does do a lot of damage, but mostly seem like a bait for Leviathans to get the Warriors to step up.
Zapman hiding in the stealth brush. Jake did sniff that out, though, as the aggression was on Netroid, but now Jake's out of position. Knocked up in CC consistently. Health bar down to half. His adapting goes in looking for the kill. Awesome Jake will use his ult to try and buy himself some time away from adapting, but it's still too little too late as he goes to the sky. All the while, Shinto did get hold of SOT, and with adapting dunking back in for the double kill. Pagon does at least answer that one back, but Pagon against 4 gets support from Panitom and the Sonic Boom. Pagon will end up falling here. The poison is ticking away. One more auto will do it. They're all out of range. Pagon lives the dive too much, and they won't be able to get anything on it. That's the issue with Leviathans for me here, J-Mac. They are really diving for the final hit of kills when they could just go do an FG.
However, the big benefit of the Leviathans in that team fight was that the main damage dealers of them was these hunters. And what does Rongyu do? He stands in the middle of his whole team, says, here's a sovereignty, here's a spectral armor, you take essentially no damage. Shinto goes into quadrupedal stance on the Tiamat, throws out his ultimate. I'm pretty sure Pagon probably crit him for about 100 damage at that point. Felt like Shinto's health bar just did not move at all. And the Oni Warriors is where they found their struggle. They need to keep SOT alive for these fights because he's the only one who can do effective damage against these frontliners. When Fine OK is walking up, when Rongyu is walking in, they're the ones soaking all of the auto attacks from the physical damage dealers. But SOT is being forced out of this fight by adapting more often than not, and it's allowing the Leviathans their way back in.
Primal Fury, they're going for Warriors here. A bit surprising for me. I feel Leviathans could have got something on the map. It does tell me the way we're seeing these fights, though, J-Man, the Leviathans would rather battle than go for objectives. They want to kill them because they feel maybe there's a chance we could have it stolen away from some of these carries. I guess is a concern for them. Instead of going for that, they just want to take these scrappy battles. But Warriors are able to hang in here because they're getting the objectives.
The Warriors are a scrappy team. I mean, we've talked about it multiple times, how this is a ranked style of team. They want to be the hero. They want to be the carry. And they're doing that. They're standing their ground as best they can, that being the only Warriors. But once these Leviathans group up as 5, you have Rongyu providing those ores to the team.
Nice.
You have Fine OK stepping to the back line. It's so easy for Leviathans to do things just like this, take objectives away from range.
Yeah, a bit of luck there involved, but at the same time, a lot of bursts on that Martichorus, as people have mentioned once before. And now we're in a tale of, well, just a Fire Giant up once more. And Warriors don't really have a traditional front line. I've said this earlier, but Maui, not the greatest appealing for his team. And the fact that he's the only front liner, you can see adapting going, wait a second, we could just kill that guy. And we've seen that a couple of times now.
Once the hook is down, now you don't have that cripple, you don't have that pull back. And as soon as he jumps up to try and swing away, he doesn't move very fast. It's not like a traditional jump or a dash where you get a lot of movement in a quick area. That's a very slow swing, and all they have to do is reposition either right behind or right in front of Jake, cut off his path. Even if you want to, just powerhouse it and beads the stun that comes through it. You can immediately put him back out of position. His ultimate leaves him in place, throws him in the sky, takes him out of combat for a moment, but he's going to land right back in the same spot. So it's so tough for the Oni Warriors once that hook does go down from Awesome Jake. Leviathans going to start at the fire, and There's a lot of warriors on the way. This is not a fast objective.
No, it's going to take some time with Pagon, Jake, and Netroid on scene. Shinto immediately trying to get some zone duty on with Fine OK, doing good work against SOT and getting the beads. As soon as the beads was called there, it feels like Leviathans dropped the FG and start pushing on into the forefront and find a pick. Knowing SOT has no beads now makes it trickier for him to escape the clutches of the Outquark.
I found the secondary problem. There is no anti-heal on the Oni Warriors to deal with adapting sustain from ultimate, from Final Case sustain from his dad, and Wrong You as well.
Yeah, I definitely want to check with the healing numbers a little bit later on, but at the moment we're still watching this war in the jungle. Leviathan's trying to find a kill. Zapman goes to the sky to use his ult to whittle down Jake, who escapes the Earthbreaker from Fine OK. Pagan tries to whittle down Fine OK, but it won't be a case. All the while, mid lane minions are just slowly pushing in. Leviathans feel happy to just keep having these fights where they're like, okay, we'll poke at FG, we'll bait you in, we'll try and pick you off, we'll try and force some relics.
Well, as I finish the sentence, SOT finally picks up a Divine Ruin to answer Fine OK, because the problem has been Fine OK presses 3, W keys at whoever's in front of him, pulls them back, takes a little bit of damage, and then sustains it back up. Wrong You, while sitting at about, I think, his 3,300 healing that he has done, nearly matched by Jake with that heroism, getting at least that benevolence earlier on. This is the only anti-heal that we have just now seen. This should help in the team fights a little bit. It'll keep Wrong You's healing a little bit at bay. It'll keep Fine OK from being able to go menace mode in your backline. It'll prevent some of the sustain that Adapting or Shinto potentially build into for themselves as well. This is one start for the Oni Warriors, and it's a good spot for them too, because as I mentioned earlier on at the very start of this all, if the Oni Warriors get to 20 or so minutes of the game, they're only 2,000 gold, or even at that point, they have a great way to fight back in up against the Leviathans, and they have great burn around this objective.
So far, though, I do like how Leviathans are playing around Panitom specifically here. They're not going to the lane. They're not going to allow the Sonic Boom to come on through. They're using the choke points in the jungle. The changes to the jungle have made it tricky for the Sonic Boom Mercuries to find the angles as easy as they once did. So just trying to stick to these corridors and make it tricky and force him to come to them allows him to return some damage before he bursts them down. Once again, Leviathans control the FG pit. They've got a couple of wards down. Leviathans have got some wards defensively placed as well here. It's Fine OK. He's just trying to keep them all clumped up and keep eyes on. No attempt at the FG so far.
No, it's all to bait the Oni Warriors forward. So many tight corridors for Panatom to try and find a path through. There is one singular path that Panatom can take to go from his side of the jungle to the enemy. It involves going right through the Fire Giant pit in order to do so. Not the most ideal line, and not too often you'll see the Leviathans standing at that point, because they've got to recognize that that is Panatom's only way to get from his team up to the enemy backlines at that point. So a lot of it is going to come down to Jake cutting off some of these extra corridors. Use that landfall, maybe not even to pull, but just to block the Leviathans from being able to get a path out.
Bit of confidence built there for Leviathans in terms of objectives. They get the Pyromancer there. It was almost like a little test to see how will the Warriors respond to this. Could we maybe look at the FG next if it goes well? And that was a good sign if you're a Leviathans fan here for them to climb back into the series. It's not over by any stretch of the imagination here. Game's sort of balanced on a knife edge because the Warriors have a comp that get 3-4 kills, the game could be over. If Leviathans do the same thing, it's probably an FG that could also signify the end.
In 5 sets of game this weekend, this is the closest that any of them have been at 27 minutes in, where we're only 2,000 between each other.
Yeah,
I mean, at this point,
if you just look at the kills, Jay, like 12-3, you're like, wow, Leviathans are dominating, and it's not a domination. They're in control. Let me give you that, but look at that. Panitom finding a bit of an angle on that Primal Fury here. No vision for Leviathans around this, and they have to stay on the right-hand side. So when this klaxon sounds, I expect to go from Leviathans here to either start the FG quickly or take a fight.
Panatom has to go back to base, and as you say, it's the signal for the Leviathans to start at the Fire Giant. Oni Warriors have got to fight this 4v5 if they want a chance to take it.
Jake gonna ult early on, pulls in Shinto into a dangerous spot, but no panic from Shinto. Meanwhile, Pagon and Netroid forced away. The boulder over the wall does decent damage to zone Pagon out. Zapman did a ton there, and now with the backup from Panitom, Sonic booms to the back, tries to get to Shinto. Still doesn't find the kill, though, as Adapting gets hold of Pagon. Ducks down to get Panitom for a triple kill. Adapting's back in action, boys, and the FG is on the table.
Leviathans, give an extra cut of your winnings or your salary over to Fine OK. This is the man setting up every single one of these engagements. Finds another pickup on SOT, who doesn't respect it. gets yanked back, gets pushed against the wall, and that forces the Oni Warriors back again. Pagon, SOT, they both get clipped by the boulder. And Final K, though he's not building a lot of damage, is doing a lot of damage with that boulder. The Oni Warriors keep getting caught in these neural corridors. They keep getting stuck together, holding hands in the jungle, and you can't do that against a composition like this.
9-1-5 for adapting, but as you said, fine, okay, look at that build path too. He knows he's dealing with these hunters that are going to be hitting him. He's going to make sure you attack slower, you crit less, and if you want to fight me, I'll do a lot of regen too, but if I hit you, you are beads and are running for your life.
That is the only saving grace Sot had there. If he did not have Flicker up, would have to use beads, might even have to use ultimate as well. Fortunately hasn't. The Phoenix still goes down. The Leviathans still have one more runic bomb in pocket, and that makes their sieges very easy if they want to use it. They can take down the tier 2 tower left, though it's already at half. Just walk in with Zapman, with adapting, take that one out, no problem. Save it for your next Phoenix. Mid Phoenix, not the worst one to lose to the Warriors. It's not the best one to try and go for one of these defenses. Typically, that's the lane on the far side, closest to the Fire Giant there. Not the end of the world, though, for the Oni Warriors. And with the fact that the deficit has only climbed up to about 5,000 at this point, means that in actuality, itemization isn't that severe or drastic between the two. The largest of those ones is adapting versus Panatom, and adapting is recognized that, yeah, crit is a problem.
Sure.
Also picks up the Spectral Armor to now deal with Panatom, so Panatom's never winning that 1v1 because adapting has the execute, has a guaranteed way to find that kill, so long as the beads are down. But with no sustain for Panatom, no sustain for adapting, no defense, namely for Panatom, unless it's a fight in the jungle, it's his only opportunity to go through, or a couple lucky crits.
Well, we've definitely seen Zap on this Marty Chorus a couple of times here, but I just want to check in with his build path here. Very expensive build. Transcendence Bloodforge takes a long time. Not a whole lot of attack speed in this. This is raw power and ability damage you're getting out of him. Sure, if he hits you, it's going to hurt, but he's not attacking too often. He's really relying on his ultimate, on his poke potential to deal some decent damage to these carries.
And that ultimate does a lot of damage. Reduces after you get hit by it, and at least there, but also shreds protections every single instance. So while you're technically doing less base, you're getting more value, 5% per tick. Means if you land 8, you can get that maximum of 40% pin there, which means he doesn't necessarily need to go for attack speed if he can just raw DPS value with that ult and with that 2-1 combo.
We've got a bit of a split going on here. Leviathan sending 3 towards this left-hand side, specifically the carries. Final K is looking to wrap around the back and open a window for adapting to get in here too if he can. Soon as Final K finds an Earthbreaker driving strike combo, you'll see adapting hunt that target down. Final K stepping in on his own at the moment. Will to half health early on there. Has to fall back. Jake thought about leaping in, changes his mind once more. Minions now starting to teeter towards mid lane. The bad news is there's only a minute left on this FG, and Leviathan's like, you know what? Not feeling too confident. Or should I say, he's already down. They're not feeling too confident here, so they'll limp back, take an Oni Fury more than likely, start setting up for the FG once more.
Got Zapman, wrong you. Those two can take it no more than easy. Shinto, though, be there just to make sure that it does go down, but they can split themselves. Not only Fury, grab a Pyromancer. Again, that simplifies your siege. The more runic bombs that you have, the easier siege becomes. The easier you can guarantee to just take out the Phoenix with 2 runic bombs. If you want to drop both on one, you'll almost guarantee to take out the bird at that point, or you can hold on to it to split it either for that left and right side, or even use one for the objective or possibly the team fight after. The Oni Warriors have done their best throughout the early game to stem the bleeding of the Leviathans. They did great, holding it to at most a 2,000 lead until about that 25 minutes. But now is where their struggle comes in. Now is where they're losing that initiation. They don't have that traditional tank outside of Awesome Jake to get to that back line or even to defend because, as mentioned, Maui is aggressive. You're not sitting there to play passively for Maui, that you're not doing the Sylvanas plays where you sit back and you wait for that chance to get that 4-man knock-up on a dive. You're the one who needs to set up for the 4-man knock-up. You need to be the one to get those pulls. And considering he's the only one burning beads from them, every single time he goes to that landfall, either somebody dashes away, they jump in the sky, or they pop a relic and he can't do much after that.
Cheeky little pause there from Netroid. We'll find out, I'm sure, what the issue is, but it shouldn't take too many moments by the looks of what I see in the background there. Everybody seeming quite calm about the situation. Good time for Oni Warrior here just to kind of relax for a second and go, okay, listen, we're behind. What do we need to do different? The good news, if you're an Oni Warriors fan, though, at this stage, it is an EFG this time around. If they can steal away this EFG, if they can find an avenue on this in JMac, it could open the door for them to very quickly kill off Phoenixes with the amount of carries they have on this team.
2 ADCs, plus a critting jungler as well, and Mercury auto attack focus. Yeah, you get an enhanced fire John onto even 1 or 2 of those, makes things much easier, but most importantly, denies it from the Leviathans, which is the biggest thing the Warriors need now, is to find an objective, either a sneak one, steal it away, slow down the Leviathans. But if they commit their bodies to try and take this fire away, if they try and force a fight with it, you cannot lose more than a couple people. We are at late game. We are nearly full build for every single player on this map, especially the Leviathans. It's only wrong you missing out on a little bit of defense, but at this point, he's a warrior. He's near cap at this point for himself, especially in the areas that he needs it. You've got to be safe, but you also have to make a risky play for the Warriors.
Well, I think for the Leviathans, it's fine, okay, and wrong. You happy to eat as much damage as possible, as you can see in that middle area there of your screen. Talking about the middle area, look at adapting now. He's got an Oni fire wave marching down. He knows someone's going to defend, and he wants to try and catch some. Doesn't really feel like taking on Panitom, especially when he doesn't know where everybody else is. But the Oni fire minions down there, at least the left-hand side and right, the Oni minions, I should say, will cause a bit of a predicament here in terms of defense for the Warriors, especially when the FG is knocking on the door.
Adapting wants a 1v1 against, honestly, anybody. I'm not sure there's anyone who can defeat Adapting. He's got 2 items to hardcore amplify his damage. The Spear of the Magus, plus that Perfected Rod of Tahuti means he lands a combo onto anybody. The Dragon Call with the Storm after. Very easy setup for him and a very easy kill target.
Oni minions on the left-hand side will reach the Phoenix. Fine, okay. Going to start zone work of the FG, which was slowly being whittled down by the Leviathans, but not a full commit just yet. Warriors forced to dance around here and wait as their Phoenix slowly starts to meander down. No one poked out too heavy. Shinto and Zap playing very defensively here. And look at that left-hand Phoenix still slowly falling. There is Panitom now having to go back. Soon as he shows face, what do the Leviathans do at the FG? They commit towards SOT and Jake. The boulder at least forces SOT back. Has to Aegis away from the damage from Zapman. Wrong you happy to tank up the front side and set up Adapting for his 10th kill of the game, and he'll dive on in looking for the next carry in mind.
Pagon so low, only able to get out because Adapting's too far. Panatom goes through, but immediately has the beads and dash away. The Oni Warriors scared away from the team fight that the Leviathans forced upon them.
And to be honest, Leviathans are playing against a composition that is more of a ranked composition correctly, in my opinion. They are taking fights going, you know what? You want to fight, we'll poke you out. We have 2 very defensive mid and carry positions here. Zapman can take to the sky and get out of combat. Same can be said for Shinto with his defensive plays and his long range. It makes it hard for the amount of damage Warriors have to get to the backline. All they can hit is poor old Hercules. Can we see mitigated damage by chance here, Doug? I just want to see. Look
Jeez.
at.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, probably stop hitting the Hercules. That's a really hard thing to say because he's the one who is W-keying you, but Final K has walked up multiple times.
82k.
Popped his 3rd ability, got that mitigate wounds up, and has done just that. Mitigated all of the wounds that have been thrown out there. If you look at this, 80,000, he has mitigated the entire damage chart of what his own team has done, plus more.
Oh, but Zapman forced a Pagon. That's a surprise. The middle Phoenix did at least fall to fine. Okay, it was an EFG, but Zapman falling there. Mistakes were made by Leviathans, and it might just be giving the Warriors a cling to hope for a second. Leviathans can't really siege without their Hunter this time round, so they are going to have to fall back. This EFG is not going to be used, and Oni Warriors may just have a moment to go, you know what? Final K won't die. How do we kill him? What do we do about it? How do we zone him? Who's gonna zone him? Can someone just deal with him and take him out of the fight? And everyone's like, well, not me. I'm Merlin. What am I gonna do? I'm Kurdanos. I'm Mercury. I can't do anything against this guy. However, this power play, 25 seconds here, they're starting to siege up this tier 2 tower.
Tier 2, an afterthought for the Oni Warriors. 2 carries, Mercury, easy peasy for them. Primal Fury as well, and this is actually a huge Fury for the Oni Warriors. As the game goes on, Primal Fury matters the most compared to the other Furies because it gives you that extra damage in the jungle against those monsters, and this could be a huge pick on Fine.
They do need to pick a good driving strike to separate.
Sonic Boom!
Sonic Boom from Panitom, though! And all of a sudden the Warriors could run away with this. 3 members of the Leviathans are dead for 60 seconds. The Phoenix is exposed. You're looking at the old guard adapting and Zapman having to defend against 5 down mid lane. Zapman zoned out left, adapting spotted by Netroid in the jungle. He gave the game away, but still Warriors have to get the Phoenix. They look at Zapman, adapting and Zap combine to take out Pagon, but there's still carries left. Adapting's ultimate will be denied and Panitom gets the shutdown kill. The Phoenix still stands. The respawn time is 30 seconds on 2 of them. It's only Zap against 4, but those health bars are low. Can Zapman do the potential impossible? Can they even tank this? No! They have to fall back. The game will continue.
Zapman nearly cost the Leviathans that entire game by being picked on the top side of the map at that mid Phoenix. He gave the Warriors the confidence to take the Fury, and then Wrong You steps up thinking, okay, we'll be here. I've got backup from team. Unfortunately, he walked down the one corridor on this side of the map that Panitom has a perfect line with that Sonic Boom. Sets up for a triple in that regard. Pagon and Netroid can then just pump auto attacks. Who's going to stop them?
Beautiful Aegis from Zapman there. Look at what we saw coming out of SOT. He tried to change stances, get the burst damage off from that. Zapman read it. Zapman read the bait and found the kill. And it's not the best idea, in my opinion, for SOT to do that. I mean, it's now 60 seconds in a 4v5.
Only Warriors just were handed away back in the game, and now SOT, not going to say he's entirely thrown that opportunity away.
It's causing a problem, for sure.
Panitom can't go in the same way that we saw Haddix earlier on and walk into the Titan and just take it. There's 3 towers up. He needs a minion wave. But the Warriors have got to hold out until Fire comes back up, and they have to wait until Sot respawns. Problem being that it's a Merlin, woes for beads and Aegis, has to make a long walk back to get to this objective.
Well, 5 minions for both teams down this middle lane is the only Phoenix that's been exposed for either side so far. And honestly, the mistake, in my opinion, was maybe Zap dying, but it was Fino getting a little bit too excited around that Gold Fury. Now he's thrown back into danger, but he's tanky enough this time with backup. Panitom knocked up, forced to beads, tries to escape, can't escape the damage of Shinto. As Zapman, with the death from above, continues to poke out Jake. In the sky, Wrong You landed, looking at Jake, he'll leap away. The chase could still be on as Fino walks on up. They would like the Phoenix, but they don't have minions or the FG yet.
No minions, no FG, just means a push back. But Fire Giant is alive. The one hope that the Warriors have for a safe attempt to steal is Netroid. Has that ultimate still available, can from a range try and get those snipes in the sky, but with Frenzy for the Fire Giant, or at least for the Leviathans at Fire Giant, makes it an easy pick for them, though it's still not going as fast as they'd want. As long as Netroid can't get to there, Fire Giant should go to Leviathans, and maybe even a fight after.
And I'm fine, okay, looking for an earthquake. It won't find it this time. Dashing in goes Wrong You. He hits a crit, changes his mind. Fino now chasing on to SOT. These stealth fields have definitely caused some problems in the jungle. The middle Phoenix has respawned, but they're looking for the right side as Adapting goes in for SOT, and he does get the up down, but it wasn't an execute range. Shinto looking to make the play for the win. Won't find the kill, but will do a tactical TKO to expose this right-hand Phoenix.
That boulder from Final K, time and time again, he has been hitting 3 people with it, and it's forcing moments like this where Pagon can't even go back.
Sonic Boom hits from Panitom. He looks at Shinto, but juggled in the air immediately, and Adapting credited for the kill. Merlin damage came through from SOT, won't find a home. Jake forced back to base 2. Right Phoenix has gone down. Fine, okay, now walking towards the middle Phoenix. The writing is looking like it's on the wall. We are looking at a game 3. We're staring it in the face here.
Scripted a good one here, Hindu Man, as Leviathans push back up, but with Shinto low, he can't stick around long. Has a lot of damage on this Tiamat, but this is the problem of sieging into what the Oni Warriors have drafted for their solo. SOT can keep them out. Unfortunately, it's not for very long.
Now, Fine, okay, thinking about leading them in towards the Titan room here. Minions on the right-hand side, not
30
fire
seconds.
minions here. Can they poke down the Titan in time? They are tanky enough to do so, I feel like. Zapman trying to whittle it down, but take into account his ability base, so his autos don't swing too true. Up, down from Jake, keeps Wrong You in pressure, but Wrong You's fine. Titan at half as Shinto gets Netroid. Jake back in base, and that's game number 2. Hoo-wee! Did Leviathans make a mistake at that Gold Fury pit? Zapman falls just before that. Fino tries to defend Gold Fury. And I think that hands from Fino was him going, you know what? Maybe I kind of overextended in that moment. Maybe, maybe I just calm it down a little bit and we wouldn't be in a dangerous spot.
That was a tough game for the Oni Warriors to fight back in, given that they stayed